Filmation may have given Duncan a voice, but Mattel was the one that gave us the figure. Here's your look at the brand new Mattel He-Man and the Master Universe 80s Adventure Cartoon Collection Man-at-Arms Heroic Master of Weapons. With Master Universe Cartoon Collection action figures, the magic of the 1980s childhood is back. Inspired by the Master Universe cartoon and toy line from the 80s, this line features key characters designed with a nostalgic look. Built at 5.5-inch scale and 16 points of articulation for great battle moves and poses, they come with one accessory and a themed mini-comic. While he's being bestowed the responsibility of keeping someone else's secrets, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the cartoon collection version of Man-at-Arms stands. Of course, then we'll also bring in the Origins Man-at-Arms so you can see the size differences between the two. The figure, though, of Man-at-Arms is 6 inches in height, or the figure is going to be 15 centimeters tall. And speaking of secrets, let's bring in the man he has to keep the secrets for. Here's what the figure looks like with the cartoon collection He-Man. Bringing also in the other figures we've already had a look at so far. While you got them all over there, they'll make more sense in a second. Here's what the figure also looks like with the cartoon collection Skeletor. And here's also what the figure looks like with the cartoon collection Beastman, all representing the first wave of figures. On this side, we'll also bring in the Origins Man-at-Arms, because I don't have the original vintage Man-at-Arms. And also I can bring in one of the Royal Guards as well. What I thought was maybe going to make sense still doesn't make any sense. Do you mean the pamphlet that comes included with Man-at-Arms? No, that still doesn't make any sense. Why Mattel feels the need to waste the paper and the printing to tell us that you can take the arms off of Man-at-Arms, the head, the lower half of his body, and of course the boots. Yes, I'm sure this is good probably to tell the kids that you can do that, but I think kids that are prone to pulling things off their figures are going to do it whether they're supposed to or not. This is going to get folded up. My recycling bin is just over there. And it's going to, well, didn't quite make the recycling bin. No, what doesn't make really any sense is the choice of choosing the comic for this figure. Now, you get yourself Wizard's Vizard. I thought really initially that they could have paired the comics based on the episodes, because He-Man and Skeletor have episode-specific accessories of the same episode. Beastman and Man-at-Arms both come included with accessories that are based on the Dragon Invasion. I thought they probably should have come include the same comic, but if you have been following along the exploits of this humbled reviewer, thank you for that, by the way, you'll notice that He-Man and Beastman came included with the same comic. Skeletor and Man-at-Arms comes include both with Wizard's Vizard. Makes no sense whatsoever. If anybody can pair really the reasonings why, other than maybe they just wanted to have 2 figures with one comic, 2 figures with another comic, the comics are exactly the same inside, so if you already have Wizard's Vizard, you already know by now. The same sort of comics, the same panels are featured inside the comics. There's a little tease there for the masks that come included with Skeletor, and there's the sword that comes included with He-Man. On the back is advertised He-Man, Beastman, Man-at-Arms, and Skeletor as the first wave of 4 figures. Now, I think we're already getting announcements. Pre-orders have already popped up for the second wave, and I'm super excited for that. I think Trapjaw is part of the second wave. Some people have already been lucky enough to find their Trapjaws in the wild. I had no such similar luck, just because I'm a Canadian collector. So I'm going to move the comic out of the way. I'm going to keep all of them, even though they're basically doubling it up times 2. The figure also comes included, speaking of Beastman, he comes with a weapon specifically from the Dragon Invasion. This is the Stasis Ray. The Stasis Ray isn't quite the same molded plastic as the Hover Ray. The Hover Ray came included with Beastman, would actually be facing this way. One is actually more the darker gray, as you very obviously see. And then the Stasis Ray that comes included with Man-at-Arms is kind of more of a, I guess, like a bluish gray. They're basically wielded the same way, and nothing really necessarily telling you that you have to even have these displayed with Beastman. I mean, really, if you wanted to, you could have these both displayed with He-Man characters. But you're going to take yourself Man-at-Arms, and now being the benefit of having gripping hands, you can actually take the Stasis Ray, clip his hand. I did notice with the Stasis Ray, I don't know why it is about the handles, but they didn't seem to hold inside his hand as well. Could also have something to do with the fact he has all this extra armor on his arms as well. Like, how would you even be able to move your arms anyways? But that's what Man-at-Arms looks like with the Stasis Ray. Very cool little accessory. Like Beastman, probably accessories that aren't going to find their way back into a little baggie somewhere. These guys are actually going to be displayed with the figures. Just let's remove that for right now, put that off to the side. The figure also come included, of course, if you're going to get a Man-at-Arms, you got to also come include the mace. The mace in your face does come included with Man-at-Arms, although it's much larger than the one that we get here. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. This is the one that comes included with the Origins Man-at-Arms, or would have been based also on the original vintage Man-at-Arms mace. This is the much larger mace that comes included with Man-at-Arms. It's also a lot heavier for the obvious reasons. There's a lot more plastic going in it. It doesn't maybe have as much the detail, so that's one thing that it's lacking that the Origins does a better job with. But if you certainly want cartoon accuracy, I think this one looks a little bit closer. And again, this can also fit in his hand as well. and just have the figure displayed that way. It does make the figure a little bit more front heavy, so you just may want to bend the legs a little bit further back. But yeah, Man-at-Arms looks fantastic with the little mace. Taking the figure now and removing the mace, let's get a closer look at the head sculpt. I mean, not only do I think it looks a lot like Duncan from the series, but in a way also it looks like Tom Selleck. A missed opportunity by Hollywood by maybe not casting Tom Selleck in an 80s. Well, we did get the one Master of the Universe movie starring Dolph Lundgren. I mean, did anybody really want to ask for, hey, let's do a Master Universe? I know obviously it was a lot cheaper than them producing these big oversized sets, but let's do a Master Universe taking place in the present time and have no Battle Cat, no Orko. Yeah, we all kind of share the same grief when it comes to the I love the Master Universe film, but it obviously could have been a little bit better. And casting Tom Selleck back in the 80s as Master Universe Man-at-Arms, yes, that would have been good right away. Bringing back in the Origins Masters of the Universe Man-at-Arms, I don't know why I'm tacking Master Universe on the front of that. You can definitely see there's a lot of color changes between the two figures. I mean, obviously, it doesn't look at all like they're sharing anything between the two. I mean, even like the armor is very different. I thought, like shoulder-wise and obviously the gauntlet that he has on his forearm, it's very different from the original Vintage and very much different from the Origins Man-at-Arms. Why am I having such a tough time getting that out? Man-at-Arms also would have had a much more brighter green coloring for his plastic, where more closer to the colors of Filmation, this Man-at-Arms actually has kind of more of a darker green. The green and the gold works a lot better on this figure, even though really if you were to start to take the armor off, I mean the armor, this one actually doesn't remove, you'd have to really kind of take his arm off, take his head off, you'd probably have to pop the arms off on both sides. You might be able to slide the armor off that way, but like really if you were anyways, what you'd only be basically seeing underneath is basically He-Man's body. The torso seams as well as the arms and the shoulders, the lower legs also are all identical with all the other figures we've looked at so far. Check off He-Man, check off Skeletor, check off Beastman. All the same. Obviously, the armor is a little bit different. This just straps around his body, although it doesn't strap in such a way that you actually can see little fasteners. What it is instead, they basically would have just slid this up his arm and done the same thing also with his gauntlet. It also makes this a little bit more stable. If anybody's been collecting any original Vintage figures or even the Master Universe Origins, one of the problems that always plagued Man-at-Arms is the fact that these never stayed properly. I mean, every single time I've gone back in and tried to tighten this, because they don't add an extra little ledge right there, there's no real way to ever really tighten the forearm guard that he has, so it always really sits really loose on the figure. Hey, there's Origins Man-at-Arms. The newer Man-at-Arms, the one from the cartoon at least, has things a lot more in place. So other than maybe just taking the hands off, probably would be the only way to really remove the armor pieces. At least nothing is flopping around on the figure. Head sculpt, though, is again fantastic. A little more simplified on the armor than what we got with the Origins, but again, looks very much like the cartoon. I really feel like maybe Man-at-Arms and Beastman might be my two favorite from this line. I really like the head sculpt. Again, I like the colors that they chose for this figure. Even though the colors for Beastman were off, I think the colors, though, used for Man-at-Arms looks a little bit more closer to the cartoon. For his articulation, is all going to be the same as all the other figures. So, of course, he does have the ball joint. It does rotate all the way around. Head does look up, looks down, and also moves it back and forth. As for his arms do rotate all the way around. Even though he has all these larger shoulder bulky pieces, nothing really is getting in the way of preventing the figures from moving his arms outward. I mean, you can easily give him a big giant bear hug, or I guess he'd be giving a bear hug to somebody else, can easily be pulled off, and nothing is really, again, flopping around on the armor. His arms swivel back and forth. They're only on a single hinge, after all, that allows, again, the elbow to bend back and forth. I've noticed here on Man-at-Arms, at least on mine, that the joint on the elbow is very tight. Again, I'd rather much tighter joints than looser joints. Hands rotate also all the way around. His waist is only relegated to just a straight swivel. Goes with the territory of the Origins, and the original Vintage figures all had that, although the original Vintage figures would have had the snapback feature. That feature has not. I mean, there's been a couple of figures from the Origins line that actually have had the snapping feature, but all of them now basically just a straight swivel. Legs split out, they're on ball joints. You can take the legs and move them forward. Yes. Move them back. Sure. Swivel at the top of the thigh. The figure has a single hinge in the knee. Rotate the lower leg. The only thing I will say that's a little loose on the figure is this part right here. It's a little loose on mine, but other than that, not bad at all with Man-at-Arms. Ankle pivot back and forth. Ankle rocker back and forth. Nice looking Man-at-Arms. Nice looking Man-at-Arms. He is not my favorite. I think my favorite still goes to Beastman of all things. Surprisingly, I would say Beastman. And yet, looking at Beastman, how good of a figure is that? Of course, we also brought in Skeletor. Just by the fact of how much pressure Skeletor would have to have, not only working with all the boobs that he does, but just the fact he's the big bad guy, I think puts a lot of pressure on the fact that the figure had to deliver a much better one than we actually did get. He-Man was also really good, but Skeletor, I feel like, I don't know, it's just not quite there. And of course, bringing back in not necessarily the source material, but certainly the vintage toy line, the closest thing, at least I get to the vintage toy line. Here's also what the figure looks like with the origins to block Beastman. Beastman's too good to be blocked. Yeah, like Beastman, though, just happens to be two figures that I like from the wave the most. They also have what I feel to be the best accessories. Unlike the sword and unlike the masks that will have already really gone back in the bag, no plans at all to ever be displayed on the shelf with them. Both actually the hover ray, and also the stasis ray that came included with Man-at-Arms and Beastman respectively, both will find their way back onto the figures when I have these guys displayed on the shelf. Just a mild correction to something I mentioned in the review where I did say that Duncan didn't have removable armor. It's not the case. In fact, actually, if you wait it out coming up to your vision shortly, you'll see on the back of his armor, similar to what we saw with Skeletor, the armor detaches actually in two halves. And see there's these rectangular pegs that attach the bottom half to the top half of his armor. Once you pry those two, it's easy just to remove it from his body. But if you wanted to see what he looked like underneath the armor, just literally look to He-Man and just think green instead of flesh tone. I don't have any interest at all to try to remove the armor, because once that starts to develop looseness, especially the fact that they're using rubbery plastic, you're never going to be able to get it back in place. It's like trying to remove, if you ever had it back in the day in the 80s, like you were trying to take cereal box prizes out, you pull the bag out to try to find where the prize is. It's always at the bottom, and you can never get that bag properly back in the box. I don't know how many boxes I had sitting inside my cabinet cupboard where all of them were overly warped with me just trying to fit the bag back in the box. Just leave it alone. Don't touch it. As you can see, I've got Man-at-Arms displayed here with the stasis ray. Ironically enough, both him and Beastman, my two favorite figures from this first wave, both come included with the best accessories. Both come with accessories from the same episode, The Dragon Invasion. Funny though, they didn't come with the same mini comic. I think they should have just paired it based on the episode. So He-Man and Skeletor, having from the same episode accessories, should have had the same mini comic. And Beastman and Man-at-Arms, my favorite, should have come included with the same mini comic from the same episode. Anyways, they've decided either way to pack two comics with each of the figures. Well, not two comics with each figure. Two different comics come with this first wave. So if you did happen to rip any of them, not that I go out of my way to start ripping mini comics, but at least you got you have yourselves a couple of extras just in case one happens to get damaged coming out outside the plastic prison. What do you guys though think of Man-at-Arms? Let me know down below in the comments section. And now that we can finally say we've wrapped up things for the first wave, who's your favorite figures from this? Is it Skeletor? Is it He-Man? Is it Man-at-Arms? Is it Beastman? Let me know down below. My favorites are He-Man, or my favorites are Man-at-Arms and Beastman. Then it's He-Man. He-Man's good. I mean, I don't really have any real issues with He-Man. Skeletor, unfortunately, I just had high hopes for him. And Skeletor, for me at least, just under-delivers a little bit. Or he delivers, but he just doesn't deliver it as well as, say, Duncan. But what's your favorites? Let me know down below in the comments section. Again, these are... I can't even get that out. These should be available for all intents and purposes at local retail. Good luck if you're a Canadian collector to try to find these. I have seen some people actually already showing that they've got themselves Trapjaw. Some of the people actually were lucky enough, some of the collectors were lucky enough to actually find these locally earlier. I had to wait a little bit longer. I wasn't going to pay the stupid, crazy prices that some of the sellers were selling them on eBay. I waited it out. I ultimately got myself the entire first wave online from, I think, Big Bad Toy Store. But again, if you guys are interested, they should be circulating at moderate levels, depending on how lucky you are as a collector. But let me know what you guys think of these. In the meantime, if you guys did enjoy this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and would like to stick around for more, I will say from a Filmation standpoint, the cartoon collection is wrapped up, at least for right now. But we will be looking at some more Master Universe reviews. Those are in the pipeline. Those will be also coming your way. I don't know if this week, but they will be coming shortly. So make sure you're coming back to this channel on a regular basis. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.